I'm Parker Rex. I led tech for a startup that sold for 23 million bucks. After that, I tried Airbnb for music. It didn't work out, but what it did do was light a huge fire underneath me to learn how to program everything across the stack. So I went all in, full time, learning how to do that, and then ChatGPT came out. Of course, this was a game changer. Immediately recognized that this is going to be bigger than the iPhone, bigger than cloud compute, maybe as big as the internet. So I said, I'm going to spend all of my time, literally all of it, learning how to leverage AI across programming, marketing, and business, while also building my own SaaS product and an AI media company. On this channel, I do a daily upload sharing the strategy, things that are going on in the news of AI, no BS, no fluff. First, we start out with a little questions and answers. Shout out to Another Animal 01, instantly the winner of the comment belt. I thought I was getting comment belt at 500 subs where you get these little badges, but apparently I need to get a lot more watch hours. So Another Animal, you're the proud winner of the comment belt. Oh crap. Because you said a couple awesome things in here around, well, first of all, you said I should wear a suit. So, I got real dolled up for you guys today. Maybe there's one girl watching besides my fiance, but anyway, so he gets the comment belt. So he said something good about the suit, sure, but beyond that, there was someone that was saying, "Hey, your videos are not ADD proof enough," and I was like, "Okay." He says a whole bit about the Gary Vaynerchuk strategy. Now, I love him or hate him. The guy's made a lot of good calls. He calls all these platform shifts, maybe not NFTs, but it's still not out on whether or not his thing's going to work. But this is more or less what I am doing with this channel. Is there will be a ton of automation, and I mentioned this in today's upload, which is the 8th of April. If you're watching this at a later date, I talk about my vibe marketing strategy and using AI automation and orchestration to take long form content and then break it across every platform to the tune of thousands and thousands of posts across everywhere, across text, across, well, that's short form text, mid form text, long form text, same thing with video, same thing with generating carousels, all of that. So shout out to him for the belt. And when I do get badges, you'll be a proud badge holder. And then there were a bunch of other comments that were just asking for the giveaway that I did yesterday around the starter kit. So turbo starter kit, the development treasure chest. I will show these things in a second, give you a quick update on them, and then reply to all the comments. Let's see. Oh, someone else said that I too long didn't watch. Easiest way to make 5K is selling courses in community access. Join my community and buy classes. Thanks, Idle Observer, for the free ad. Now I'm just going to make every video. It'll just be 6 seconds long, and I'll just say, go buy my thing. So thank you so much for the free ad. You're great. Now, quick update on the Turbo Starter Kit. I was up till 3 last night trying to get something done in a cheap, fast way. Actually, I was just frankly just exploring. I know how to do, sometimes you know how to do the thing the right way or the proper way, but then you decide, hey, you know what? I actually want to try something new. And so this Turbo Kit, it is open right now. Like you could go to this route. It's just Parker Rex Vibe with AI Turbo Kit. This will be housed on the iVibeWithAI.com. Shout out Basil for a great comment on using that as the URL. But this will be housed on there. And I was just trying to take all of the LLMs.txts, which, if you're not familiar, this is something that a lot of people do as a pattern to take all of their documentation and put it in a big text file for ingestion of an LLM. And so I was going to try to do this without doing RAG or retrieval augmented generation, which I've rolled myself several times. I've also used Azure. I've also used AWS. I've also used GCP. I've done it everywhere, Edge Functions and Supabase. But I was trying something different where I was curious if instead you could just do Flash call. So Flash being Gemini, and they have a million context window. And I was running up on that to begin with. I was like, oh, I'll just take a bunch of these LLM TXT files out, and then I'll just prompt inject it which means when you send a message off, instead of it just being like, hey, and then, well, I guess that would be you, right? So this is, let's say, user, then this is assistant. So if you said, hey, and then you had a question about the Supabase JS SDK, instead of it just jamming all of those in there, which I was trying to do because I thought it'd be cool and I thought I could cache it so it'd be quicker. Instead of doing that, you actually need to do some form of RAG. It would be better with that amount of tokens. So instead of it doing that and then just like coming back, you'd run out of this really fast, but it was late. Instead of doing that, you'd go and it would have a little DB with the vectors. And then you'd have a system prompt that would say something along the lines of, hey, you're super helpful research developer assistant and you're responsible for answering questions about XYZ topics, the use of these documents. And then there's a lot of other stuff that you can configure. RAG's kind of a rabbit hole, but that'd be an easy way to do it. So that will be coming out. If you want to, you can go and check out the link now, but I'm not going to reply to comments until I put in a video that is just a quick Loom explaining how to use the Turbo Kit. It's got a bunch of good stuff in there. I'm adding tests and something that I came across that is the purpose of this video, which is just the goated AI coding stack. It's absurd. I need to add that because I would feel remiss if I didn't. So let's get into some of the AI news. This will be evergreen because I make takes on it. So if you're watching this at a later date, you can call me an idiot or you can call me a genius based on what I tell you. Let's see what old Sambo says.
I think it's the degree of automation that matters. To get to 100, truly 100% automation, you can make a complex thing and never touch code. That's one thing, but I'm less interested in that question than when a coder becomes 10 times more productive.
Ta-da, that's it. I talk about this all the time on the channel, but competency is an all-time premium because the amount of leverage you get, the multiple you get on what you're capable of doing, obviously much higher if you're competent. So that's interesting. Another one, the godfather of vibe coding, Andre Karpathy, and that's downplaying him. He's much more than the guy that just said the word vibe marketing, which is a pretty popular trend. Let's just take a look-see real quick before we get into it. But he wrote an article yesterday that came out, and it's really interesting because what he does is he's just like, hey, this whole the future is here but it's not evenly distributed thing is a good pithy statement, but he brings up the fact that it is distributed. You just have to use it, and it's multiplying everyone's output, all these great things. So I'm going to own these keywords. That's the point. That's why I bought like 10 different domains. That's why you see vibe coding and vibe marketing and AI growth agents and all these things in every single title. It's what I talk about. It's what I'm interested in. It's what I believe in. I believe strongly that there will be a one-person billionaire. I'm not saying it's me, but I know that that's going to be a thing, a one-man team. And it's going to be maybe like a 100-person, like a 100-agent squad that's helping. But yeah, these are taking off. So then we get into some of the things that Facebook's done. Facebook, aka Meta, released Llama 4, and it's not doing so hot. There's a lot of rumors that they gamified their arena score. They trained it specifically to win on a leaderboard. Then the leader who runs the whole program stepped down. Whenever you see step down, it probably means they were fired or something went down. But that's like the PC way of saying it. And so on here you can see, yeah, they have a 10 million context window, but it does the worst on retrieval. It's horrible at coding at a 16% on the coding polyglot test from Aider. If you're not familiar, Aider is a fantastic CLI tool. I'm just teaching people how to use Whisper in school, so that's why that's up. But if I go to my workflows, you can see Aider is on here, and that API key is burnt, so good luck trying to take it, you freak. But Aider's a CLI tool for coding, pretty good one. And you can see that Llama is not doing so hot on there. On the opposite side, you can see that Gemini 2.5 absolutely crushing it. Kind of wild. Really, really good to see. And you can see there's more evidence that people are finding that they just kind of gamed this. It's like, okay, you did really good on this thing, but you're 16 on this other one, and it's just all over the place. Literally, the only one that was good was the one that it may have gamed. So, announcement on GPT 2.5 Pro from the guy at Google. They just extended their usage limits on Vertex. And the way that you set that up in short, I go into this in like every little detail in school, but in short, you will, if you want to get this as a hosted instance, I guess you call it, it's not totally hosted, but Vertex is the most control you can get over Google's platform and their AI offering. And Vertex has the model garden in it, so you enable the model that you'd like. So in our case, obviously Gemini 2.5 Pro. And then you can go in and you can actually set up access to it, right? You need your API key, obviously, but then you do something called a G Cloud auth. So it's in the CLI, and you'd authorize with it. And then because it'd be coming from an app, then you do just Google up like Google Cloud Auth application default login. If you put all those words in, it will show you all the steps to do this. It gives you a JSON credential tied to your CLI and your cursor or whatever ID you're using. So if those requests aren't coming directly from your CLI, maybe it's coming from client or something, then it'll be okay. It'll work. Let's talk about this. Johnny Ive and OpenAI are making this Her device, kind of a wild thing. They're considering spending 500 mil on some sort of device, so that's interesting. If you didn't know, Johnny Ive's the GOAT designer who made iPhone. Now, onto this. Everyone's freaking out because the CEO of Shopify is running his motor about the use of AI. He should be. And there's a lot of doomers in here that are like so scared. But at the end of the day, he's talking about how in order to stay ahead as a company at their scale, then you have to be growing, I think, something like 20% a year, which sounds daunting, but it's not if you have leverage, which is what I talk about all the time. Yeah, in a company growing 20 to 40% a year, it's similar to the Red Queen race, which is based on Alice in Wonderland story, where you have to keep running just to stay still. True. It does sound daunting, but given the nature of the tools, this doesn't even sound terribly ambitious to me anymore. It's also exactly the kind of environment that our top performers tell us they want, learning together, surrounded by people who are also on their own journey of personal growth and working on worthwhile, meaningful, hard problems. Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's why I'm like really like super bullish on community. Is if you put it in place and you put the effort in, it's a ton of work up front. I definitely underestimated that, just to be totally honest. All these little things around it, like, oh, you got to make like a video sales letter, and then you got to like seed it with content. But then now I'm seeing the purpose of it, because if you have someone in there that's working on a QuickBooks integration, they don't have to like go to Reddit and dig around if someone else in there has already done it. It's just like, yo, what's up? Can you teach me this? And that's already starting to happen, which is really cool. So he talks a bit about using it effectively. Yeah. And then basically saying you got to be using this thing all the time or you're going to get left behind, which is more or less true. You just get leverage. That's all. So every time you're thinking of adding headcount, then seek AI first. That's not a doomer quote. That is a smart one. And then what we're going to be talking about is the GOAT setup. This is a product that I used all day yesterday and we'll be demoing for you guys today on the starter kit, which is Claude Taskmaster. It is absurd. It is everything I've been looking for. Every problem that I've been running into gets solved with this, which is great. Other things, OpenAI launching their responses API. So go check that out. The reasoning tools, I'm not even going to talk about this one. Sorry, bud. I haven't used it, so I don't know enough about it to talk about it. And then Cloudflare's launched AutoRag in open beta. Now, as someone who's only used Cloudflare as a CDN and for buying domains, hosting, and stuff, well, I guess I've done Cloudflare Wranglers. I've done Cloudflare Workers. I've done R2, D2. I've used it a fair amount, but I haven't gone all in. So I'm really curious because they just keep releasing all this stuff. So the fact that they can just spin up a pipeline, I really like that. And the offering of having everything in one place is really pretty enticing because I've done this in Azure, but then you're in Azure and it's awful. It makes you want to cry. It's so ugly and hard to use, or just like convoluted. This is crazy. This guy made Tom and Jerry with a prompt, like literally a minute long scene. So there's going to be movies written by AI, which is wild. Oh yeah, look how long that prompt is. But that's where we're going, ladies and gents. Then what else? There's a lot of news today. The prompt watch. I just wanted to show this because I'm going to be exploring it. There's a whole service around boosting your brand visibility in these search engines or these LMs, which are today search engines. But it's basically just SEO. And that's a big part of why I make media. That's why I do the long form stuff, and that's why I'm rolling out this vibe marketing strategy is at the end of the day, the shift in market share for search and discoverability will go away and dissipate and slowly atrophy from Google to these, but they're still using similar ways of finding stuff. They want to deliver good answers. That's what they optimize for. They're working really well and growing really fast because they don't have a bunch of blue paid ads in front of it, but Google's also fighting against that. But it doesn't change anyone's strategy. I think this is just SEO with a new flair on it. So it is cool to see that people are building now. Like I said, Cloudflare is building a lot of stuff. They have this agents website, which I'm going to do a deep dive on in Vibe with AI. I think it's really cool. Anytime I see something like this, I just go build a little throwaway app, try to time box it to an hour. It typically goes way longer than that because if it's interesting, then you naturally will go and do it. But if you say you're going to time box it, then you go and you start. And then I'd probably be using something like this that lets you convert your Vercel Next.js project automatically to Cloudflare. So that seemed pretty interesting to me. There's the auto rag thing. What else? Oh, this may be the best thing I've ever seen on the internet in recent times from John Carmack. He was a huge inspiration for me when I was learning to program. I literally had his name on my calendar every single day where I just pretend like I'm going to become him. He's the GOAT of programming. But someone was complaining saying, the way that Microsoft recreated your game and it's AI generated is just disgusting and spits on the work of every developer everywhere. Well, go cry a river. No one cares. He immediately says, what? This is impressive research work. And then he gets a reply saying, I respect your work, all this. But you can go read it on your own time, but I will pull out the best part, which is building power tools is central to all progress in computers. Everything that John built was for someone else to then build upon. So the world moves forward when you take these primitives and you make them better. That's a power tool. And then on the idea of people having less jobs in the space, well, just get better. It gives you a multiple. And he just says, don't use power tools because they take people's jobs. It's not a winning strategy, which I think is fantastic and a really strong truth. Other things, I was going to watch this, but it's too long. It's just on VPS stuff. So now let's get into Taskmaster AI. This is the bulk of the video, which is the goated cursor stack. So what we're going to do in this is solve the problem that we had before. And I'm going to just go through and show you how the tooling works. And then I can go through and actually execute some of the tasks so you can see how it works. But we're going to swap this massive prompt injection for doing RAG. We have a couple of options. So we can use a Deno edge function. If you're not familiar with Deno, it's the word node remixed, and the developer of it now works in Go, but doesn't matter. Deno, it lets you basically make function calls outside of its own environment. So you can they use them at Supabase all the time, where I can make a call to OpenAI. It's not reliant upon the Next.js route handlers. I can do that. And it would go and call, make the vectors, and then store them. And do it automatically when it sees a new doc somewhere. I can do Cloudflare, or I can do Azure. So I'm going to just say that I want to do it in a Deno edge function. And what I'll do is I'll open up the Turbo Kit. You guys, if you comment below Turbo Kit, please, then you guys will get a comment when it's totally ready. If you guys are antsy and you want to check it out now before it is ready, then it is available. So, what you do with this Taskmaster is it keeps control of your tasks, just what it sounds like, but it's a really nice CLI tool that also has MCPs. So the point of it is you can install it globally, and then when you do an init, the initialize function, it's going to add a few things to your project, and you're going to need an Anthropic API key. Now don't start crying because I used it for the entire day yesterday, and I think I spent a quarter, so pretty good. And the way that it works is it's going to add in 2 folders. It's going to add in this tasks folder, and it's going to have all the different tasks in it. And the tasks are classified by a bunch of different things. So it has the dependencies, very important because you can set up a dependency tree and then it knows where to go. The priority, the description, the details, the test strategy, status, obviously. And then it has a JSON file that has all of them in here where you can then break them into subtasks. So this was me last night trying to figure out how to do Gemini 2 Flash in a cheapo way, messing with cache. And Next didn't like that because Next and cache are not friends until I guess use cache comes out. It was messing with the build somehow. And you can add subtasks, you can expand things. It figures out the complexity of the different tasks that you want. So then you're driving from here because it has MCPs, because it's added this tasks and it's added this script that's running it where you can put in your PRD and then it creates the tasks. It also, like I said, has the complexity analysis. So if you had tasks and you're trying to figure out which one to go after, it has a few different parameters you can look at. You can look at the complexity score as an input. It'll look at what's dependent so it knows what to do first, because you can't go, in the case of something simple like we're making a very fancy header for a client on their website, it's got a lot of animations. Well, we don't want to do the animations before the header is actually there. So that's an obvious one. But it's going to be looking at that, and it has the PRD example in here. I use a specific prompt for writing my PRDs ahead of this, and then I reformat it into that, and I bind it to a key. So I do that. If you want that prompt, then type the word PRD prompt below. You'll get this one. Has the expert technical product manager for feature development. That's what I was before I was a full-time developer and research guy. But I know that job really well, obviously, and I worked with a lot of architects. So it includes all the things that I did. And then you have the prompt variable, which is PRD instructions. This is where I'd go, and I highly recommend using Whisperflow for that. We're going to have the CEO on to our community to kind of teach us the tricks of the trade, but he beat like a $3 trillion company, aka Apple, on voice. But by using Whisperflow, by running your motor inside of PRD instructions, you will give it all the details of it, and you want to explain the classic product manager method of like, okay, narrow down the problem, try to come up with a solution, provide context of examples if there are one. If you're doing something heavy like a reverse eng on an existing product or an existing feature, then I'd go to deep research before I do this. So I'd run a deep research, I'd run the reverse engineering prompt that I've written to then get all the context for that to include under just a context header in the PRD instructions. So then you've narrowed the problem, you've come up with a solution, you've provided context on the reverse eng, you've provided links to, in this case, it'd be like Dino edge function with Supabase, and then you provide rabbit holes, areas that could blow up, and then no-goes, so areas you shouldn't touch, because you need to provide rails for the LLMs. So I'd run that inside of here with Gemini 2.5 in ask mode. It's going to give me a dope PRD. Then I'll take it and I'll say, this is a great first draft. Now reformat it using this format. I paste the format. And then below it, I say, and then write to prd.txt. I change it to agent so it can do a write. Now I have my thing. And then I run taskmaster, task-master space. I think it's parse. I haven't memorized every single one of them. But you basically run a command and then it will parse out, and that's when it does the call to Claude. So yeah, I do taskmaster list is one of them. I can do this, parse PRD. Cool. So by default, it will break into 10 tasks, and that's awesome. But the point of the PRD is to capture the entire essence and detail about your idea. It'll take the PRD and turn it into structured, dependency aware list of tasks. It means it'll look at your entire PRD and figure out which tasks are foundational, which are built upon that foundation, and so on. So you end up with a linear path to completion simply by completing tasks in the order of dependency. It also has a table. So you'll notice if you went into your package.json that you'll see it added a CLI tool, which is the CLI table 3. So it's using that to then show you the tasks, right? And other thing that it adds is in your MCPs. So under cursor, it has the cursor rules, the dev workflow that explains how it's working. So it gives you these global CLI commands if you weren't using MCPs, and it will go and do that thing. Now it's funny, I'm not going to demo this because I'm running up on time. We only have 30 minutes together, but you know exactly what to do now. You go to the Taskmaster AI, you download it, you run a couple of commands, you get your API key, you run Taskmaster init. It's going to ask you a couple questions about your project. You write out the PRD as I explained, which he wouldn't explain on that GitHub, so that's the value you gained here. You get a couple of the prompts if you want them, make the comment, and then you're off to the races where you would just say, okay, let's get started. Which task should we start on? It's going to go and it'll call one of the CLI commands like taskmaster list. It'll show you them. It's going to say, hey, we need to get started on number 1 because it's, 2 through 10 are dependent. If you get to one that is way too broad, and this will happen when you give it a very beefy PRD, is you'll say expand on this with research. That's when it does a perplexity call to get additional information if you didn't provide enough research. And then if it doesn't need additional research, you just need it to be expanded without a perplexity call, then you just say expand on this one, it seems tough. And then it'll go through that task and come up with more subtasks, more research, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. And I really, really like this workflow. So definitely check that out. And off camera, I will be doing this. I just think that it'll be too boring for most people to watch. And check out Eyal Toledano. That's the guy who's made it. And lastly, just to wrap, we can do this together real quick. But the way that I can make like a quick writing agent is I can look at someone who writes a bunch of stuff and like does this full time for a living, and then find their kind of rules. You'll see a lot of copywriters will do this, but I'd look at his. Maybe I'd use Tweet Hunter X to find one that's popular, maybe that the market thinks is really smart. But all I'd be doing is I'd be taking this and I'd be turning those into rules, and I'd use them as the custom instructions inside of a Claude project or inside of a ChatGPT project. And then I'd go to every writer who's had things pop, and I'd take those and provide them as context in the examples. So custom instructions and examples are the way to go. And you'd make the writer specific to the platform you're making the content for. So if I'm doing tweets, then obviously I'd get tweets. If I'm doing Medium posts, I go look for the ones with lots of claps. But it goes back to just how to write good prompts. That's the most important thing, is giving it a role, giving it a task, giving it examples, and then let it go. And then getting those back, reading them yourself, and making it better. And you do that a few times, and then you go from, like the 80% one to the 90% one, and so on. And that's what I'm going to be talking a lot about on this channel. You'll also see this in action. It's Tuesday, April 8th. I'm shooting to roll out 3 more videos on my main channel. You can go check that out. And I give all the behind the scenes stuff on the school. You can check that out too. But yeah, it's going to go from the daily video, and then I'm going to be rolling out the main channel videos. And then I'll be using that process I just explained to then go into short form, and then go into written, and then go into image plus written, and then go into voice, all these things. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you like it. That's your way to pay it forward. And I appreciate your time today. Have a great one. See you in the next one, aka tomorrow.